Is atheism scientific? Today I want to discuss this question. Is atheism scientific? In the modern world, atheism and science are increasingly becoming synonymous. People say, he is an atheist. He must be very smart. He believes in science. He does not believe in any religious superstitions. She is a scientist. She must be too smart to believe in God. Many scientists in our time became public proponents of atheism. Richard Dawkins, for example, he wrote many bestsellers on Darwinian evolution. Then he concludes there is no God. Stephen Hawking, a theoretical physicist from England, he talks about quantum mechanics and black holes and general theory of relativity, and then he concludes there is no God. The universe came by itself. Neil deGrasse Tyson is an astrophysicist and a popular media figure. In his widely published books and TV shows, he shows Bruno burning and Galileo standing trial, and he reminds people how Christianity suppressed science. Then there is Victor Stenger, a particle physicist and philosopher. One of his books entitled God, the Failed Hypothesis, how science shows God does not exist. Look at the subtitle. How science shows that God does not exist. For these scientists, the logical conclusion of science is atheism. First, let us define some terms. Atheism. Atheism is the disbelief in the existence of God or gods. Now, Hindus believe in millions of gods. Atheist says he does not believe in any one of them. Jews and Christians and Muslims, they believe in one God. Atheist says he or she does not believe in the existence of a singular divinity of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Atheist does not believe in the existence of God. Thereby, he or she does not believe in the existence of a creator. Then let us define science. Science is a systematic enterprise that builds and organizes knowledge in the form of testable explanations and predictions about the universe. In the scientific method, you make a hypothesis, make predictions based on that hypothesis, then you design experiments to test those predictions, and then you either refute that hypothesis or modify and continue with that hypothesis. It is a cyclical process. It never stops. Take gravity, for example. Isaac Newton did pioneering studies on gravity. Many experiments proved Newton's universal theory of gravity. Then came Einstein, and Einstein told many fascinating things about gravity. And next century, some Boorstin will come and will tell more fascinating things about gravity. So you see, it never stops. We never know everything about any one thing in this universe. When we think about science, we think about things like microscopes and telescopes and test tubes, particle accelerators like Large Hadron Collider. But we forget that many assumptions go hand in hand with these experimental gadgets. Those assumptions are unproven. Paul Dirac was a theoretical physicist who was one of the founding fathers of quantum mechanics and quantum electrodynamics. He was awarded Nobel Prize in Physics when he was just 31 years old. He once said, "The successful development of science requires a proper balance to be maintained between the method of building up from observations and the method of deducing by pure reasoning from speculative assumptions." So Paul Dirac says here, successful development of science requires a proper balance between two things, the method of deduction and the method of induction. Dirac says the method of deduction by pure reasoning from speculative assumptions. Would it have been possible for atheism to give rise to scientific method? Let's go back into history. Take the period we call scientific revolution, roughly from 1450 to 1750. Modern scientific worldview was constructed between the publication of Copernicus' heliocentric theory in 1543 to the death of Isaac Newton in 1727. So let us say during those 300 years, everyone in the world was an atheist. The atheists called a conference, and one atheist stood up and said, fellow atheists, let us devise a method to understand the nature of reality. Another atheist said, well, why do you think that the world is understandable? Why do you think the world is intelligible? Science starts with the assumption that the world is intelligible. Atheistic materialism believes that the world is a product of unintelligent processes. There is no reason to come to accept the assumption that the universe is intelligible from an atheistic standpoint. A world produced by unintelligent processes should be unintelligible. So if you start with atheism, you cannot even accept the first assumption of science that the world is intelligible. Another atheist might say, well, I don't believe in any intelligent designer or God or creator. I believe that universe came without any intelligent being behind it. It came through billions of years of unintelligent processes. We and our minds are products of those unintelligent processes. There is no reason to assume all of a sudden our world is intelligible to us now. But let us say, for the sake of conversation, that the world is intelligible. And he sat down. Then every atheist in that meeting agreed. Let us assume that the world is intelligible. But they will have another problem. Even if the world is intelligible, how can I say that our mind has capacity to understand that intelligence? Can I trust my brain? Can I trust my mind? Here I am after 6 million years of evolution. I descended from ape-like creatures due to random mutations. I am a product of blind processes. The world around us is also a product of blind processes. How can I use this mind, a product of blind mutations, to understand the world? If you are an atheist, you cannot even trust your own mind. There is no certainty to any of your thinking processes because there is no surety they correspond to the reality around us. Yes, science starts with skepticism. You question everything around you. But when you doubt every tradition and every idea, you should be certain about at least one thing, that your mind is not deceiving you. Atheism and Darwinian naturalism would never give you that, because atheistic worldview offers no reason why you should trust your mind, a product of billions of years of blind mutations. The two methods of science, the deduction and induction. First, let us say the deduction. Deduction starts with your mind and how you can trust your mind. Atheism has no reasonable solution to this. Deduction needs both skepticism and certainty. Take Descartes, for example. He started to doubt everything, but he cannot doubt everything forever. Then he would be an eternal skeptic. We would not be talking about Descartes today had he died in skepticism. He needed something to anchor his skepticism. You should be certain that you are skeptic when you have doubts about something. You should be certain that you have doubts about that something. If you doubt that you have doubts about something, it would not end there. You fall in that bottomless pit of skepticism. You cannot be skeptical about your own skepticism. That is the same problem Descartes faced. He needed at least one thing in his life that he would not doubt. Historian of science Richard Westphal wrote these words in his book, The Construction of Modern Science, Mechanisms and Mechanics. As everyone knows, Descartes found the rock of certainty for which he was searching, that which could not be doubted in the proposition, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. The cogito became the foundation of a new edifice of knowledge. From it, he reasoned to the existence of God and then to the existence of the physical world. In the process of doubt, the existence of a world outside himself had been one of the first items to go. Its existence had appeared to depend on the evidence of the senses, and the manifest propensity of the senses to err had called its existence into doubt. From the new foundation of certainty, he now felt able to demonstrate as a conclusion also beyond doubt that the physical world external to himself does exist. So how did Descartes find certainty in his thinking? Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. I trust my thinking because God created my mind. The cogito became the foundation of a new edifice of knowledge. From it, he reasoned to the existence of God and then to the existence of the physical world. Descartes also got the certainty of the existence of the physical world outside himself because it is also the creation of God. Mind and world must correspond because both are intelligently created by the same creator. Listen to those words again. From the new foundation of certainty, he now felt able to demonstrate as a conclusion also beyond doubt that the physical world external to himself does exist. We have Descartes here, the father of modern philosophy. Science is a child of philosophy. So we can say Descartes is the grandfather of modern science. His thinking went like this. I can trust my thinking because my mind is created by God. I can trust the external world because it was created by God. Then Descartes got a doubt. Maybe God is deceiving my thinking. He said no, because God is a good God, he would not deceive me. You see, Descartes anchored his certainty not only on the existence of God, but also the nature and character of God. Had Descartes been an atheist, that would not have been possible. He would say, oh, there is no God, the universe is a product of unintelligent causes. I am a product of blind, unintelligent processes. My mind is a product of blind imitations. I doubt everything. Why shouldn't I even doubt my own thinking? Why shouldn't I doubt the existence of the physical world? Descartes would never have achieved certainty for his cogito had he been an atheist. But he was not. And the world would never be the same again. He separated the mind and body completely. They are two different kinds of substances. The mind is independent of the physical matter of motion that science is studying. You can explore nature using scientific method because God has endowed the mind with innate mathematical and logical ideas. Our beliefs are true and they correspond to reality, and as long as we use the scientific method, we will not be deceived. That is called Cartesian dualism, the bedrock of modern science. What are atheists doing today? They are lumping mind and body together. They are of same substance and made up of blind imitations. That is how atheism destroys the reliability of mental faculties. Thomas Nagel is the professor of philosophy at New York University. He wrote a book entitled Mind and Cosmos. Let me quote a few sentences from this book. He says this: "The great advances in the physical and biological sciences were made possible by excluding the mind from the physical world. This has permitted a quantitative understanding of the world expressed in timeless, mathematically formulated physical laws. We got all these great advances in the physical and biological sciences because Descartes excluded the mind from the physical world and gave it certainty." Thomas Nagel went on to say this: "Evolutionary naturalism provides an account of our capacities that undermines their reliability, and in doing so undermines itself." Thomas Nagel, an atheist, saying these words. Evolutionary naturalism provides an account of our capacities that undermines their reliability, and in doing so undermines itself. So atheism and Darwinian evolution, they undermine the reliability of our thinking faculties. That's about deduction. Now let us go and discuss induction. In inductive method, we observe the world around us and formulate scientific theories based on those observations. Just like in deductive method, in inductive method, we start with certain assumptions that external world is real. That is an assumption. Microscopes and telescopes don't help here. You must make that assumption. The external world is real, and my senses have the capacity to accurately absorb that information coming from those observations of the external world. Even if the external world is real, if your senses are not reliable, it does not help. You must start with those two beliefs. The external world is real, and my senses are reliable to understand that reality. Take Francis Bacon, for example. Bacon's method of induction, it starts with the assumption that God created the world in such a way that the external world is real and that reality is reflected by our senses. Just like Descartes made God the foundation of certainty in his deductive method, Francis Bacon made God the center of his inductive method. Atheism cannot tell us why we should believe that external world is real. It cannot tell us why we should trust our senses. External world may be a big computer simulation fooling all of us. Our senses may be fooling us. That is what atheist David Hume said. David Hume said our senses are unreliable. He said the universe had no beginning. It was eternal and static. Now we know that it is not the case. Edwin Hubble used a Hooker telescope at Mount Wilson Observatory and showed us that the universe is actually expanding. That is sensory data, folks. That is all sensory data. We have to trust the sensory data. Had we followed David Hume instead of Francis Bacon, there would never have been scientific method. Now, atheists will say something like this: we can know that external world is real. We can know that our senses are real through experiments and observations. They say you don't need to bring God or theism into this area. Bring on intelligent people, give them good resources, good equipment, and they prove anything. Actually, that is a logical fallacy called affirming the consequent. Now, what is affirming the consequent? The external world is real because 1,000 scientists said so. Our senses give us accurate information because 10,000 scientists said so. So that is called affirming the consequent, which is a logical fallacy. Our senses could fool us. Millions of our ancestors said, Earth is flat and it is not moving. The Earth is staying still and the sun is going around it. All of our senses tell us the same thing. But now we know that is not the nature of Earth. Of course, we got telescopes and microscopes now. We look at different objects like stars and galaxies and bacteria through those instruments, but they don't give us any certainty that our senses are really giving us real information about these natural objects. Using million observers does not help. All of them might have been fooled by their senses. So unless you do like Francis Bacon did, bringing in God to give certainty to our senses and the reality of the external world, there is no logical basis to say that our senses are reliable. One more thing, to be a scientist, especially a physicist, you should also believe in the reality of mathematical realm. Atheism does not explain the mathematical nature of universe. It also does not give any certainty to the reality of mathematical realm. In theism, on the other hand, you expect the universe to be mathematical. For example, Johannes Kepler said, because God created the universe, we can expect mathematical design in the structure of solar system. And we got Kepler's laws of planetary motion from his work. Atheism cannot make such predictions. Eugene Wigner was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1963. He published a book entitled The Unreasonable Effectiveness of Mathematics in the Natural Sciences. Kepler or Galileo would have looked at him and said, Wigner, what is so unreasonable about it? God created the universe in the language of mathematics, and you should be expecting the effectiveness of mathematics in the natural sciences. We have seen three things today: deduction, induction, and the reality of mathematical realm. They are the foundations of scientific method. Is atheism scientific? No. In fact, atheism destroys the logical foundations of scientific method. It does not justify the assumptions that underlie the scientific inquiry. Is atheism scientific? No. In fact, atheism destroys the very logical foundations of scientific method. It does not justify the assumptions that underlie scientific inquiry. If you believe that your mind is a product of millions of years of blind imitations, there is no reason to believe it gives you capacity to understand the external world. There is no reason to believe that external world is real. There is no reason to believe that your senses are giving you real information about nature. There is no reason to believe in the reality of the mathematical realm. It might just be an artificial construct of your mind's illusory thinking without any relation to reality. Christian theism, on the other hand, has better explanatory power than atheism. God created the external world, same God created human mind, same God created the mathematical realm. Now it logically follows that you can understand the external world using human mind to the mathematical realm. That is why it is not surprising that there was not one atheist among the founding fathers of modern science. From Copernicus to Galileo to Kepler to Newton to Leibniz to Faraday to Maxwell, they all believed in the God of the Bible. They all followed Lord Jesus Christ. So Christianity supplied those logical foundations for the scientific method. Christianity actually supplied those basic assumptions that underwent the construction of scientific method. That's why it's not surprising that scientific method was born in Christian West. Hope that helps.